So I want to do a quick activity to kind of show you how you can use some tools that might be around your house in different ways. I know that not all of us have all of the tools that we'd have in the art room, and so these little activities are just ones that you can do with some of the tools you might have around your house. Now, we know one of the things that some of the students have is markers. Now, markers, you guys know, are not my favorite tool because markers dry out, markers are hard to fill in a big space, markers, they don't always get a whole bunch of variety of colors and values, they're just flat. So there's lots of reasons I don't like markers, but markers are kind of cool because they are kind of like having watercolor just at your fingertips. So what I'm going to show today is some ways that you can work with markers to make them look like watercolors. So all I have with me today is a piece of paper. Now, again, a piece of paper should be a little bit heavier, but if you don't have heavy paper, you can use any type of paper. If you are looking for some heavier types of paper, some fun things you can use are again, like your paper bags from going to the grocery store, or you might decide to go and get you could even make your own paper. You could use some things like, again, mail that you get. Sometimes I get heavy paper in my mail that's really nice to use. So look around your house and see if there's some paper that you can use. Don't feel like you got to go to the store and buy stuff. Now, if I have markers, don't worry if they're dead ones. You can use them. Now, I happen to have some markers here that are just regular Crayola washable markers. But again, they're kind of new, so they're not going to dry out, so I can't show you how it looks different with that. But I am going to show you, like I said, how to work with these markers. Now, the big thing is I have to use washable or regular markers. I cannot use permanent markers. So if you have Sharpies, this won't work very well. Now, the easiest way that I find to use these, if I have just, like I said, markers like this, is to just go ahead and start by drawing a picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to draw a picture, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just outline a heart. Now, I don't want to color it in with this, but I can make some of my lines thicker and I can make them stand out better. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some other things to it. So I just pulled out rainbow colors from mine. So I'm going to do a little design and show you kind of how some things look. But I can go ahead and draw around it. So I'm getting some looks there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this look like Sunshine Day because, man, do I feel like I need a sunshine day. That yellow was not the best yellow for me. But there's my yellow. Lots of happy symbols here. And you could use whatever you want. Now, I just drew a couple things to start. And I'm going to show you a couple options on how to work with them now. So let's say that I am ready to paint mine because my markers, I want to use them in this fun way. So I grabbed a brush. Now I have lots and lots of brushes at home, but if you don't, I'm also going to show you how you can use just a Q-tip. So don't worry if you have Q-tips at home or if you have like a napkin at home, you can use those too. Now, what I'm going to do is I've also got a cup of water here and I'm just going to have my cup of water ready so that I can work with it. Now I just get my brush a little wet. And here's, like I said, the cool part. When I start to paint on top of my markers, like I said, they turn into a watercolor. So I can actually go ahead and I can paint the inside of my shape here without having to worry about trying to color the whole thing in. This is really nice when I have like a big space to color like a whole sky. I don't have to try to color the whole sky. I can just do part of it. And then I can use my watercolor to blend it in. Again, I can do some fun things. Like if I want, I could make these look like they're kind of glowing now. And I can go ahead and kind of pull them out. And just like watercolor, the more water I add, the more the color is going to change. So you can see as my brush is drying out, that color is not bleeding quite as much.
I can go ahead and I can keep working around there. Now, one thing I don't want to do is paint it and then try to color on top of it again. Because if I do that, it's not going to work very well because we know that when we try to paint on top of paint, or draw on top of paint with any tools, it's going to damage my paper, and it's also going to cause some problems with my markers. So, now I can do like fun things again, just kind of putting drops of water, sometimes that's fun. But there's an example of just how I use my brush.
Now, again, if I don't have a brush, maybe I have Q-tips. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get some water here, and I'm going to show you on my sun what I can do. And I can use this. Now you'll notice because my Q-tip doesn't hold quite as much water as my brush, I may have to add more. Now, some cool things that I want to remember is that colors will bleed together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take, and I'm going to put some blue around my yellow here. Now I don't want to color in all of it because again, my watercolor is going to do that, or my water is going to make my markers do that, I should say. So I just want to put a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is, again, I probably don't want to use the same end that's all colorful. That's the only problem with Q-tips. It's hard to clean them. But I can go ahead and I can start using this blue, or this Q-tip, to go around, and I can carefully color in that whole sky around my sun. And look at that. I don't have to worry about whether or not I had a dead marker or how long it's going to take me to fill it in. I do need to be careful because you guys know what happens when I mix yellow and blue. As you can see, I make green. So if I don't want it to get on or to be blending together in my sky, I want to be really careful about that. Now, I also know that I can do some fun things like this that I usually get to do only with watercolor. So I'm going to show those really quick because I don't want to take too much more time. But I've gone ahead and I've brought some crayons over. And you might have crayons in your house. And this is one of my favorite things to do because crayons are kind of one of my favorite tools to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a heart and I'm going to fill it in a little bit. And then I'm going to grab another color crayon because I can. And I'm going to do some swirls around it for fun. And I'm going to draw my picture. Now this is one of the cool things I can do. I like to do this with markers because I think it looks awesome. So I'm going to take a marker and I'm going to just really quickly scribble over top. This is one where I don't have to worry about doing it perfect. Now you'll notice right away my marker is just like watercolor. It does not cover up any part of my crayons. Now I wouldn't use oil pastels for this because that will break my markers, but if I use crayons I can color right over the top. And here's what I can do that's really fun and cool now is I can take my water again and I don't have to worry that I just kind of scribbled it in because my water is going to spread that color out. And what I'm going to get left with is this really cool picture that shows through my markers, which is awesome, I think. So if you're looking for some fun things to do with maybe some of the tools you have at home, but all you have are regular markers and regular crayons, don't forget you can do some pretty awesome stuff with them. You don't have to color them just like a regular marker and try to color in your shape plain. Hey there everyone. So today I'm going to be showing you again how you can use some tools that you probably have around your house, so that maybe you have around your house, to do some printmaking. So what I made here is just a quick example of something that I made as a print, but it's just a picture that I had drawn and then I colored it on a special piece or a special block, and then I ended up transferring it onto my paper here. So here was my block or my matrix that I had, and then here's my print that I made from it. What's kind of cool is this is a great way to make lots and lots of things that have the same image a whole bunch of different ways, or the same way. So you can make many, many copies of it. Now, I'm going to, like I said, walk you through some of the steps today, and I'm going to go kind of fast, so make sure that you follow along, but you can always pause the video. Now, the first thing that you'll need for this is a piece of styrofoam. And it doesn't have to be fancy. I just have a styrofoam plate. I know that I had a couple around my house. Every once in a while I pick some up, so I grabbed one of these. But maybe you use a takeout box, or you could if you have like your last night's dinner, maybe it had the meat came in a tray that was styrofoam. You can use that too. If you don't have any of those, that's okay. You don't have to do this activity, but you will need a piece of styrofoam for it. Now, I don't like my styrofoam to be this big and in such a big shape, so I went and cut mine down so that I just had a piece of square coming out of it. Now, I could make this any size I want. I could make it itty bitty tiny. It's up to me. Now, once I have my styrofoam, the next thing I'm going to need is just a pencil. Now, this is really important, so listen up. You need a dull pencil. Don't sharpen it. Don't make it the sharpest it can be. You want it to be kind of dull. If it's too sharp, it's actually going to end up breaking our styrofoam, and it's not going to work so well for us. Now, a couple other things that I'm going to let you know about this, and I'm going to write these down just so that you can follow along. So let me grab a piece of paper here quick. Now, when I'm making my print, a couple things that I need to remember is I need to think about my whole space. Make sure that you're not just drawing an itty bitty tiny thing in the middle of your print block and then trying to go ahead and color the rest of it. It doesn't make it very interesting. So think about the whole space. How are we going to fill it up? The next thing you want to think about is what you're going to make. Now, when I say what you can make, think about something that you want to draw. I'm going to say really quick, no letters. The reason is letters always come out backwards. And so instead of getting your picture that's going to say, let's say D, A, D, it's going to come out looking like this. B, A. Not nearly as cool. So just be aware. You don't want to do letters. So remember, no letters. Try to make pictures of things. And you want to think about how you want to color it, because you're going to get to color these eventually. So I've got my piece of paper here, and I'm going to come up with my idea first. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to think about what it is I want to draw. And I think I want to make a nice summer, spring tulip. So I'm going to draw my stem, and then I'm going to draw a tulip leaf. I could do anything I want here. If I really want, like I could look up how to draw Sonic, or I could draw a picture of maybe a Pokemon, or I could come up with anything I want. Now I drew a nice big flower, but do you notice there's still a lot of empty space? So I think I'm going to make it look like there's a big petal leaf behind it on both sides. Now, once I'm done, then I'm going to go ahead. Now I've got my paper here. I'm going to put this on top of my foam block. This helps to make it so I don't accidentally carve through. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil, and again, a dull pencil. I'm going to very slowly draw my lines. Now I'm going to speed this up as I finish drawing mine here. Okay, now when I'm all done, what that did was it traced my picture onto here, and you can kind of see when I turn it sideways like this, you can see all those indents it made. Now those indents are going to become line barriers that I have. If I want to add more, I can always draw more on here, or I can put a piece of paper back on top and I can draw it again. But I don't need to. Now I get to have some fun with this. So I've gone ahead and I've got my washable markers out, or at least just your regular classroom markers. Do not use Sharpies on this because Sharpies won't work. I need to have my washable markers. Then I'm going to go ahead and start coloring. Now I can go ahead and color and color and color any spots where I want, but I like to color inside the lines with different colors. Now, just because it's all one color that I'm doing now, doesn't mean it'll have to stay that way. And this is what I really love about getting to use markers on this, because they're going to be more like watercolors and they'll kind of blend. So I'm going to go ahead and color that, but I'm also going to take a different color. I'm going to add some more details on there, and I'm going to just put some more colors because I like the colors. Now you might get nervous that it's drying. Don't. We actually are just fine if it dries. I know I keep saying it's like watercolor, but I can have it dry and that's okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep coloring my next sections. Now, this is where it gets fun. So I've made my whole picture here, and you guys can see, oops, I got a little marker on me when I closed my cap. It's okay, they're washable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a piece of paper and I'm going to get a sponge or a spray bottle. I didn't have a spray bottle at home, so I used a sponge. If I didn't have a sponge, I could use a towel. If I didn't have a towel, I could use a paper towel, whatever works. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just by taking my sponge and squishing it on my paper. Now, I don't want to do this on my picture yet because I don't want that to be soaking wet. And I don't want the paper to be soaking wet. I just want it to be a little shiny wet. Okay? Now, with it a little shiny wet, I'm going to take my printing block, flip it upside down, I'm going to set on top, and I'm going to go ahead and squish it down, just gently tap with my fingers around. Now I like to do my finger walks. Like I just take my fingers and tap, tap, tap around until I've gotten all of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. And what I was left with was a copy of my picture. Now you'll notice it's backwards from what I originally thought. So this is why I didn't want to use my words and letters. Because if I do those, it's going to come out backwards. So you can see here was my big petal over on this side. Now my big petal's on this side. So it's really important that you don't use letters because it's going to be hard. Now when I'm all done, I could go ahead and color this again. I can print it again and again and again and again, and I can end up with a whole bunch of pictures that are the same. And all I'm using is a styrofoam plate, my regular classroom markers or washable markers, and a pencil. And that's it. So I'm going to let you folks explore. I'd love to see what you make. Go ahead and feel free to post it on the activity here.